3, 2, 1. Okay. Okay. Welcome everyone to our presentation on the Gita. Actually, we don't have a name for this, ongoing class yet that I know of. But we started a few weeks ago and we're crawling along. We're combing through the Bhagavad Gita. And I am, just a little explanation, I'm wearing a mask because a whole bunch of my teeth came out today, the bridge. And that's why I'm wearing a mask. So I hope you'll tolerate this. I never had super good looks anyway, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so chapter 3 is called Karma Yoga. And last week, we went through answering some of the questions that Arjuna came up with, such as what is karma? What is those kind of things? So Krishna answered them. And we went as far as text number 19. So now we're going to go zoom over to text 20. Or as text number 19.
Sorry.
Okay, and we're going to go through 6 verses here that follow the same theme. And we're going to call this heading Act to Benefit. Act to benefit others. Okay, so now look at verse 20. And it's right there before us. And I'll read the first verse here. Kings such as Janak attain perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. So most of you know that King Janak, he is the father of Sita Devi, the consort of Ram. And Janak is also mentioned as one of the Mahajans in the Bhagavatam. There are 12 Mahajans that are listed there. Swayambhu, Narada, Shambhu, Kumaro, Kapilo Manu, Prahlado, Janako, Bhishmu, Balira, Vayasakira, Vayam. So you heard Janak in there. And the reason why he's listed here is because he was a perfectionist when it came to following prescribed duties. He was a king and he followed the royal codes perfectly. So therefore he's mentioned. There could have been other people that could have been pulled out of the hat by Krishna, but Krishna decided to mention someone from the time of the Ramayana. And throughout the entire Bhagavad Gita, we have connections between Krishna Leela and Ram Leela. Like say, for instance, Krishna's was addressing Arjuna's flag. Arjuna has the flag with the image of Hanuman. Ram's name is mentioned as being the great warrior. And even when it talks about the disciplic succession, the Evam Parampara Praptam, in the disciplic succession, we start with Vivaswan, then we go to Manu, from Manu to Ikshvaku, and Ikshvaku is in the lineage of Ramachandra. So there's many hints to connecting the two great persons, Ram and Krishna, together. Okay, so we're talking about great people and trying to follow them. Now let's go to text 21.
Maharaj?
Good. Yes.
Your question? When you said prescribed
Yes.
duties, what are those? Are those the duties of a king or any duties of Like
Yes.
household
When we
and
talk about prescribed duties, we're talking about religious, social duties. Religious, social duties. Just like when you're a father, so you're a parent. So you play the role as a parent in a dharmic way, right? You always have that spiritual side about you. So your duty as a father is to protect, provide, give guidance, make everyone feel at home, to feel safe, those kind of things in a spiritual environment. So we talk about prescribed duties, that's generally what's meant. Okay, so if we talk about these prescribed duties of a Brahmana's role is to inspire people, it's to enlighten them in Vedic knowledge. A Brahmin performs Vedic duties like yagyas, sanskars, sacraments. Sometimes some Brahmins are good healing doctors. Some of them are good as astrologists and astronomers. They really, Brahmins do so many things for the public. So when it comes to Janak, he's a royal king. So his role is to protect and to serve, right? The masses of people in his kingdom in particular. So that is what is meant by prescribed duties. And it must be linked to Dharma. Krishna has to become the focal point in one's duties. All right. So we'll go to text 21. Whatever great men do, the common men follow. So standards are set by such people. And all the world will pursue those standards. So we'll read it. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. When Prabhupada met with John Lennon from the Beatles and Yoko Ono, he quoted this verse. And the reason why he did was that Prabhupada recognized that John Lennon was one of the most popular human beings on the planet at that time. And Prabhupada felt that if John Lennon can be a good example, a good role model, everyone will follow. Those of us who lived during the time of the Beatles, we know that however they dressed, whatever they said, whatever they were singing about, we all, us youths, we all followed. They were like demigods, you know. They were trailblazers. They were, trailblazers, ringleaders, you know. They were radical thinking people, you know. And so therefore Prabhupada quotes that verse from the Gita, chapter 3, saying, you are a great man, you do great things, and everyone will follow. I don't know if John Lennon followed everything. I don't think he was totally dharmic, but he did inspire people. So that verse is very important. And I would take a note to try to memorize that. I would write that one down as one to learn and hold it inside of you, retain it in your head. So now, just to follow in the same theme, following in the footsteps of the great souls, let's look at 22.
Maharaj, we can take turns reading, so you can do the commentary the way you save some. You don't have to exert so much energy.
Okay, let's do that. Take turns. I'm fine with it. We're looking at 22.
Okay, Mandala, go.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Does it wreck your flow, Maharaj, or we're fine to read?
No, just go ahead.
Okay.
Don't ask too
22.
many questions. That does
Osan-
wreck my flow.
Okay. Osana Prita. There's no work prescribed for me within all the 3 planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties.
Good. So here we're saying that Krishna doesn't have to follow any rules and regulations because he is of a transcendent nature. He's not obliged to follow any rules at all. But because he is mingling with people, he wants to be a good example. He knows that makes a difference between people being, behaving properly or not. So if Krishna behaves right, then he figures other people will also, let's say, mirror that. So therefore, he's supporting it, the idea. I will follow the conventions of life. That's what he said. I'll follow the rules. I don't have to, he says, but I will do it anyways. I will be an example. So that's the idea, correct? Now, somebody might take a case against Krishna. Okay, what about the time that he had the rasa dance? Okay, that can be explained. Should we also have rasa dances? Should Mandalaram, that good-looking young guy there in Canada, should he try to find ladies and dance with them in the middle of the night? No, I don't think so. He's shaking his head. No. So Krishna, it's understood that when he had the dance with the young girls, he was at a young age. It's not what people think about him. And, Krishna did so many other things. Radharani criticized him for killing a bull. But the bull was a demon, Aristasura. In Vedic culture, bulls are sacred. Somebody can criticize Krishna for killing a woman, Putana. But Krishna actually awarded her liberation. It's true, you should never kill a woman. A woman is innocent in that regard. And but still, he did it in any case. So he can be criticized. Somebody can say he's a butter thief. He steals all the time. But he was just a kid, so he's excused. And besides, it's his butter. All the butter belongs to him. Yeah. So, but Krishna agrees to, for the most part, here at the time of Kurukshetra, after all the useful things have been behind him, he's acting as a proper, let's say, kshatriya. No. He is in charge of a great city, Dwarka. So that puts him in the category of being a statesman, right? So he's acting like a proper statesman. And text 23, somebody can read that one. That will follow suit. It will be also keeping to the theme here of following the great and doing the great things. If you're a leader, you must lead by demonstration. So get to 23.
For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path.
So this is very straightforward. And text 24, we can move along. It says the same thing. 24, please.
If if
Go
I
ahead.
if I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings.
Yes. So Krishna states in the next chapter, he makes it very clear. I come here to this world to give order and to give some structure So if he was to be a failure by his actions, this goes against his very policy of wanting to create law and order for the protection of the people at large. So when we get to chapter 4, we'll explore these verses that explain the reason for Krishna's descent. So with 23 and 24, Krishna's making it very clear. I will be a good example, otherwise everything will be ruined. And there would be Varna Sankara. Varna Sankara means unwanted population. Kind of like directionless people. People who are a bit misplaced. Oftentimes, well, sometimes we take out of wedlock. Or let's say at least out of parental protection. This is what we mean by unwanted population. Oftentimes people go that way, loitering, Prabhupada used that word a lot, being directionless, not quite sure of themselves. So that kind of population tends to be strongly present in the Kali Yuga. And Krishna really, he has a soft heart, and he comes here to give some law and order so that people will feel some protection. And the word here uses that he comes to for peace for all. Okay, so then we'll go to verse 25. We'll do 25, jump over to that, and that will conclude this little theme here. Can somebody read that one? 25.
Okay. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path.
Okay, good. So, so we're encouraged to follow duty and to do it for the benefit of others. So we'll go then to the next segment of verses 26, 27, 28, and 29. And we'll put this under the theme of encourage. Do not discourage, but encourage.
Okay.
Now,
Arjun, you want to go?
I think okay, we can look at that word encourage. There's a word in there that's very pronounced and more or less is attributed to a warrior. Can anybody pick out what that word is in the word encourage?
Courage.
Courage, yes.
Yes, sir.
So some other we have to be courageous. And it's easy to like they have been saying, let sleeping dogs lie. Okay, don't bother such people. But dogs sometimes have to be awakened to do their job. So similarly, we should not be asleep at the wheel when it comes to the human form of life. Our responsibility is to cultivate our spiritual self. And therefore, we will encourage people in the spirit of devotion. So let's look at 26. Somebody can read 26.
Arjuna?
Hare Krishna, Yohari. So, as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for gradual development of Krishna consciousness.
Thank you, Arjuna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
So this is an important verse that we should never scold people, or let's say never give anyone a hard time for making an effort in Krishna consciousness. Rather, we should be more into the culture of patting people on the back and saying, very good, well done. You know, you did a nice arti, Prabhu. Or you cooked very nice chapatis, they're perfectly round. Or even if they weren't round, say, hey, they weren't too round, but there's lots of potential. This is the way Prabhupada was. Or just in general, always encouraging people. And even if someone is trying and they don't do well, like I'll give you an example. We have one of our devotees here at the Toronto Temple, and he chants, he's got a stroke, he can't chant properly. And when new people come in, they'll pop over to me and say, I think he's got the wrong mantra. And I just say, listen, that's the best he's going to do. He's trying. And because he's trying, we need to encourage him. He could keep his mouth quiet and put lots of these guys on a stack of 20, but he doesn't. He chants to the best of his ability. His heart is in the right place.
And they still make
And
progress, right, Mars?
Still makes progress, yeah. Krishna looks at people who try, you know, and then he feels bad about people who don't try. So those who get discouraged should not be, they should see an opportunity to go up as opposed to going down. All right, so this is the point. It's the spirit of Krishna consciousness is what is important. The spirit. Let's go back to something Prabhupada said in the introduction, like he's talking about. One American lady approached me and said, why do we need another Bhagavad Gita? There are so many. And there were about 600 translations at that time. There must be much more now. But Prabhupada said this, he said that, yes, there are lots of Bhagavad Gitas, but they fail to carry the spirit of the Gita. So it's the spirit that you have to capture. The spirit is the willingness to serve. That's it. The willingness to play the role as a humble servant. If you capture that, you'll be successful in spiritual life. So I remember the first time I visited our Gurukul in Dallas. The teacher was teaching us this lesson, this verse, Nabudi Bedam Janiyed. So I think it's a very nice one. When you read Prabhupada's purport here, you'll get a different interesting bhakti twist to it. So after, you'll see what I'm talking about when you get a chance to look at that. Let's look at 27. 27 is a famous verse. I would say it is very captivating, and it gives us a good idea of what happens to us when we come in contact with this Prakriti. Okay, so let's, someone can read this one. 27.
The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature.
Yes. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karamani sarvashaha ahankara vimudatma karataham iti manyate. This is another verse you'd like to learn. And I'll tell you why. People will be impressed if you say this verse. So what we're saying here is that when you have an ego, you think you manage, you control everything. But in actuality, it's the opposite around. It's material nature that controls you and leads you on to believe that you're doing everything. So it's the three modes of material nature that we're talking about when we use the word prakriti here. So whatever you think is going on, I did this, I did that, because of me, blah, 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 blah. You hear these kind of people. But in actuality, everything was prearranged, planned, done by you, and you're merely a puppet. So if you're a puppet, you're a puppet. But when you think you're not a puppet, then well, you're in trouble. So I mean, we are just that. We are meant to follow, to take duties and responsibilities, and we are not really in control. Like when Bhaktimarga Swami was in Montreal in 1968. In the Montreal Gazette, there was a headline, and it said, "Man has conquered over nature." I know I told this story before. And what it was, they invented a snow removing machine. So all you do is you take this machine, and it sort of gobbles up the snow and throws it in another area. That doesn't even get rid of it. So just because of that, the headline said something very arrogant or puffed up. Oh, we have conquered over nature now. We are God. So that's always the problem. We are not God. Let's look at 28 then. Somebody else can read this. But I'll do this one. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself. Oh, wait a minute. Okay.
One before that.
Okay. Okay, so we're on 20, sorry, we're on 28 now, right? 28. I just read the other one. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, oh mighty armed, does not engage himself to the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the difference between work and devotion and work for fruit of results. So what we do, we should do everything in knowledge and not be led by the ahankara, the ego. The word mighty armed, I find very significant. Mahabahu. It's significant because when we talk about somebody's got mighty arms, it means they're able to do many things, to perform many tasks. And here what is being suggested is that perform the task of devotion. Do not engage in activities that are of a sense gratificatory nature. And know the difference between work and devotion and work for fruitive activities. So work and work hard for Krishna. Prabhupada used to say, you Americans, you do everything big. So do something big for Krishna. He used to say like that. Think big, do big, perform big, everything big, but do it for Krishna. Okay, so that's called dovetailing. So 29, somebody else can read this one then.
Okay. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior to the performer's lack of knowledge.
Inferior due to the
Right.
What did I say?
So I would say this is in many ways a repeat to verse 26. It's a reiteration. Krishna is saying, don't unsettle people. If they're in devotion. A spark, let's say, fan their spark. If you have a little spark, a little cinder from a piece of wood that's been in the fire, you can fan it, Or if you take a little flint piece and you start a little fire with some dry shell herbs or something like that, dry grass, fan it. You got to fan it. And then this is the way it is. If somebody's showing a little devotion, encourage them more and more and more. And this is a very important point, that we don't want to scold people when they're starting. Those who are neophytes, new on the path of devotion, don't tell them too many, don't do this, don't do that. It's more important to say yes, good, bravo, Haribol, cheers, like that. And then after that, they'll be so encouraged. And they'll say, well, I like doing everything, but I need to work in some parameters. I need some direction. I need some structure to follow. Okay? So that really 29 and 26 are quite similar. Let's move on to verse 30 then.
Okay, Mandala.
And 31, 30, 31, 32, these verses kind of run together. And we'll call it's about freedom, being free. Okay, Mandala, you go ahead.
Therefore, O Arjuna, surrender all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desire for profit, with no claim to proprietorship, and free from lethargy. Fight.
Good. So that word is coming up again. Krishna is reminding him, fight, like the word yuyusva. Like jiu-jitsu, we talked about that before. Jiu-jitsu comes from the Sanskrit yujusva. So it means to be active and to fight. That is his prescribed duties. Ananda Shesh was asking, what do we mean by prescribed duties? It means that you perform, in the Arjuna's case, royal duties. And in this case, it means to fight. And fighting, without attachment, free from profit and gain, and free also from lethargy. Actually, it's not possible to fight if you're lethargic, So again, the spirit of Kshatriyaism, Krishna's pinching Arjuna. Okay, let's go. Haribol. Let's go. Like going on the battlefield. Text 31.
Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions.
Okay, good. So follow, follow. Follow the leaders, follow the acharyas. You don't have to make up anything new. There's nothing new. It's all about following the great, and you will be great. And as a result, you get muchante. That's the key word here, muchante. You get free. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, become free from the bondage of material nature. Text 32, we're going to move along because we want to finish this by 6 o'clock. So Krishna always talks about the reverse. If you do this, here will be the results. And if you can't do this, if you fail, then here's the sad results. So text 32. I'll do it.
Okay.
But those who, out of envy, disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. So Krishna's always giving a warning. He said, if you follow this righteous path, the heavenly doors will open up to you, etc., etc. But if you fail, if you feel discouraged and become apprehensive, then you will become lost. That's the point. Lost. And there's nothing worse than being lost and not knowing where to go. Okay, so let's go to 33, 34, 35. We'll put under this heading, do the natural. Do what is natural for you according to your psychophysical nature, okay? Most people gravitate to their own destiny, like based on what they're good at. If you like to do something, that means you're probably good at it. And you're in the right slot. So Vaishnavi, do you want to read 33 then?
Yeah. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature. For everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish?
Yes, good. So again, everybody should be gravitating to their natural constitutional nature, and then you become a contributor to society. And if you try to do something you're not suited to do, it's like throwing a wrench in the works. You are creating a chaotic situation. So if somebody has a proclivity towards cooking, that's probably what you should do. You know? And if somebody would rather be a mechanic that doesn't want to work behind a desk all day as an accountant would do, then he should be doing that. You know? So, but perfect your work. That's the idea. So Krishna's saying, do what is wise. The wise will do what's natural for them. So 34, somebody can read that.
You go.
There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Again, same thing being said. One additional remark here is that don't fall under the control of extremes. Like some people feel that spiritual life means I'll be very detached. I remember when I was fairly new in the temple and I was working in the kitchen in the ashram, and there was one devotee who came in and he was very kind of a little bit reserved, but he was also anti-sociable in a way. And because he was a brahmachari, he said, I should never talk to a woman. So he was a little bit fanatical like that. And I was a little scared for him. I thought that the next time a Mataji in a sari, even with her head covered, comes in the kitchen, that he might jump out the window. So that kind of aversion is not wanted, detachment and attachment. So hit it in the middle. Hit it in the middle. Don't go to extremes, right? And so how do you get there? How do you not become extreme? With your senses and with sense gratification. The way to do that is that there must be regulation in your life, like almost like a routine that I can't go off the rails here. I must follow my sacred routine and everything will be okay. Like you have in a very industrious country like America, people get up in the morning and they routinely hit the traffic and sometimes go through breakneck speed to get to their work. They punch in or whatever they have to do, clock in once they get to their office, and then, or their workplace of business, and they carry on, and they're quite routine about it. So regulation is very good. It protects you. You know? So in Krishna consciousness, we become regulated in our habits, a regulation in terms of chanting japa, or attending arti, regulated about reading a little bit every day. Just get yourself committed to some regulations. All right. And then you will become very, very strong in your spiritual life. We'll do 35 then. Who would like to read that one?
Is it far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though falsely, than another's duties perfectly? Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous.
Good. I hope that's understood. But again, do what you're inclined to do, what you're destined to do, and don't step out of that zone. If we recall Arjuna, not this Arjuna, but the original Arjuna, he was thinking he wanted to step outside of his area of expertise, thinking I'll be like a beggar, I'll be like some kind of a Brahmin, I'll be a sage, I'll go to the forest. Says, I'll leave the battlefield. I don't want, there's too many people here. There's just too many people. I'm going to hide. And then Krishna, you know how he felt about that. He felt, no, Arjuna, that's not you. That is superficial. You're just fooling yourself. So perform your prescribed duties and keep out of the way of others. Don't think I'm Bhagavan, I can do everything. Do what you need to do. Okay, we're going to move along. I'm hoping we can finish. We don't have too much time. The next set of verses from 36 to the end can go under the heading of identifying the enemy. I mean, I would say this, that we don't necessarily have to go through this. Personally, I like to take a little time on this. What's the enemy here for those who are on the spiritual path? What's the enemy? So we do have just a little bit of time. If anybody has any questions about what we just went over, ask now. Otherwise, we'll get into this little segment here. Anything come to mind?
It's more something over the overall chapter, Mars. This chapter is entitled Karma Yoga, and we see in the 5th chapter, it's also entitled Karma Yoga, but action in Krishna consciousness. So I guess, like for someone first reading this, Krishna explains it in the Gita, but what's like the gulf of different in a summary statement? You see some people perform Karma Yoga. What is that? Is that just working in devotion also, or is that just working in a spirit of God consciousness, or is that just working with there being attached to results? What is exactly Karma Yoga, and in comparison to the next 5th chapter?
Yeah, if people are looking at this, this is what we covered the last time. Karma means to be active. It's simply to be in action. And yoga means to connect everything to God, to Krishna, to the divine. Depends on who you're talking, to the universe. Depends on who you're speaking to. So actions which apply to connecting you to the great force, to God. Yoga meaning to connect you to God, to Krishna. So that's what we mean by Karma Yoga. And in the initial stages of Karma Yoga, there might be this tendency towards Karma Kanda. And we discussed that 2 weeks ago. And we were also talking about the fruits and flower segment of the Vedas. So we don't want to go there. We want to step beyond that and do things in a more selfless way, selfless. So this is what we mean by karma. To be active but not to be selfish in our actions. Do it as an act of giving. Does that make it okay?
Yeah, and I guess the people, they might not come to the conclusion that, ultimately act towards God or
But
dovetail those towards God. Is that what then the 5th chapter jumps into? Is actually directly in contact with serving God or doing actions for God?
yes, Krishna is just leading Arjuna into faith. He said, first of all, everyone has to work, okay? But don't work in a way that is non-productive. Don't, let's say, work for God, work for Krishna. It leads to bhakti, to devotion. Work in a detached frame of mind. Work for others. Let's give some examples. At least, at the very least, give your work in a spirit of sacrifice. Work for the gods, for the demigods. At least. It's not just for you. And if you don't, then it's sthena, you're called a sheep. So, in other words, work for others, not just for your own sense gratification. This is what is being alluded to in the last few verses here. And do what you're good at. Do what makes you happy in general. That's usually people just like, do you want to go for furthering your education? You enroll in a course that you really like or that will bring you a good return. So don't
I guess
meddle in
it's,
others' matters.
in some
There's a
respects,
lot
it's
of
hard to
lessons it.
understand what one may be good at. We're not trained up like in the Varnashram system. They're kind of trained up from birth to, with certain proclivities. Here it's kind of a mixed match. So, for most people, a lot of that is
Yeah.
uncertain. How should we, come to the conclusion of what to
Well,
actually do in
I
our
think we
lives?
may have covered that before. Well, just like say if you want to know what is your constitutional position, what's your psychophysical nature. First of all, ask the person, what do you like to do? Okay, that's probably what they should be doing. Another thing is, do you ever check with your parents maybe, or who know you very well, better than yourself oftentimes? What will they say about what you're prone to do, what you're good at? Sometimes astrological readings can help in this regard. So there's your own experience. There's also an astrological approach. There's also hearing from others, like elders, seniors, those who know you. So take advice from the wise, from these particular sources. And of course, we can also pray to Krishna, who is there as Chaitya Guru, God in the heart, and he may give you an answer too, but that's maybe a little more dreamy in some ways. I'm talking to you about the practical ways to get to know what is your psychophysical self. Yeah. If you don't know what your guna and your karma is, then you can consult. And also another source that can really help you, like if you actually have a guru, like a family priest or somebody, they're like automatically a guru, and they probably have a good idea to know where your tendency lies. Here in the Western world, we tend to not, let's say, consult with our parents or our elders. We're just too proud. We have too much false ego. And so we just dismiss them and cancel them out. But they were watching you grow from the time that you were a baby. And so they know you pretty good. They got a good handle on you. And I had this experience myself. It happened the last time I was walking, when I was walking through the US. I was thinking about my dad and some of the things he said to me, kind of like, out of the blue. And then now I figured it out like 50, 55, 60 years later. Oh, he knew this about me and I didn't know about myself. He knew of my nature. So I think we shouldn't cancel out what others may know of us simply due to the fact that they watched us grow up. So family guru, like that, priests, elders, they know your nature and they can help you when you're trying to establish a compatible partner in life. It's good to consult and not just leave it all in your own hands. Most people end up with big mistakes relationship-wise because they just got into a romantic explosion and they didn't look enough at compatibility. And also, another reason is that in this day and age, people don't have a very high tolerance level. That is a fact. That's an understatement. Does that answer the question? Okay.
Perfect.
Pull out your sources, grab from different areas, grab from the experienced. You know, that's a big part of this chapter. Janak did it like this, King Janak. Follow him. What did he do right? That's the idea. And Krishna also suggests that. He says Partha, or you have a connection to Kunti, and Partha, referring to Krishna. All these names are given there to indicate something about Arjuna's life from the side of his mother Kunti, and also the side of his father, paternal side, which is Sayana Bharat. Look at what these great souls did in the past. Follow them. Don't just take a gamble and be whimsical. Take some advice. See what they did. We have a wonderful baby here. It just dropped in. You want to tell us the name of the baby?
This is Avatar. Say hello, Hare Krishna. This is Maharaj Avatar. You haven't met him in person yet. She's trying to say Haribo.
Yeah, nice. Does anybody else have any questions? Well then, so we got 5 minutes left. And I think we should leave the next segment for next week, identifying the enemy. You can get a sneak preview of that if you like.
Okay.
So we'll cover that 36 to 43. Then we'll spill over into chapter 4.
So we should try some homework and memorize some verses, Maharaj?
Well, that I think would not be a bad idea. So shall we say, Prakriti Kriyamanani? Do you have a favorite verse? Learn your favorite verse. Yad yad achariti shrishtas. The famous verse that Prabhupada gave to John Lennon. So that's one, you can pick that one out if you like. That's from 21. Or you can take 27. Prakriti Kriyamanani. Yeah. Yes.
No, I was just telling Montla, it would be better to memorize the purports for preaching.
That's a good idea.
You want to
I'll say
memorize
a little
the
harder.
purport? Well, I think it's good for the brain to regulate it by learning some verses.
Maharaj,
And if you,
after all this, can you, I did not write down what verses you think we should memorize. Will you be able to write down all the names of the verses or the numbers?
I can do it. I can give it to you.
well, right now, I'm just giving you two that kind of just jump out, stand out here. And that is 21 and 27.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
Good luck.
And we're
Tomorrow.
learning something from it.
Good luck tomorrow with the.
What was
You
that?
like
Sorry.
to follow the footsteps? Then you'll have to take out some teeth.
Yeah, good luck tomorrow, Maharaj.
Oh, Marge, that's what happened. I was wondering what.
My bridge, the bridge to my teeth fell out. They just cracked off. So I'm
Maharaj,
going in at 8 o'clock tonight to get them done, to
Maharaj,
get another bridge put up.
Maharaj is very COVID aware, that's why.
Not really. I rarely wear them. Rarely.
The mask is
Uh,
the new style
but-
anyway, so.
It's fashionable. They have this cafe on Bloor Street. It's called the Poop Cafe. And they make these custom-made design pieces. Yeah. Yeah, custom-made. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Arjuna.
Jai Prabhupada.
Hi, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We will all see here next
Hi,
week.
Avatar.
Same time, same link.
Beautiful baby.
Yeah, she's
Beautiful
too
baby. Beautiful.
Hare Krishna.
She's too attractive.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Arjuna. Thank you.
You got
Hare
nice,
Krishna, Arjuna.
nice haircut, Prabhu.
Oh.